I never believed in haunted houses. Not until I stepped into the one on Graven Hollow Road. The locals called it the Widow's Nest, a place veiled in superstition and whispers. No one had lived there for decades, not since the fire in 1972. But I wasn't there to chase ghosts. I was there to document them, for a YouTube channel that thrived on urban legends and forgotten places. It was mid-October, the air sharp with the coming winter. Fog crept low across the ground, swallowing the road as my boots crunched through the gravel. The house stood tall, blackened with slats worn from time, shutters dangling like broken limbs. My flashlight flickered. Classic. I clicked it back on and took a deep breath. The moment I crossed the threshold, the air changed. It was colder, heavier. Dust hung in the air like ash. The floorboards creaked under my weight, and the scent of rot and old fire filled my lungs. I raised my camera. Day 1. I whispered. Graven Hollow, 9:12 p.m. The living room was untouched, frozen in the moment of its last breath. A porcelain doll sat upright on a scorched couch, its eyes cracked and hollow. Wallpaper peeled like dry skin, revealing blackened beams behind it. I paused at a painting above the fireplace. A woman in a black veil, face half-burned, eyes unnaturally wide. The plaque below read, Margaret Hallow, 1899. I set up camp in the dining room, laying out my gear. Camera, EMF reader, EVP recorder, thermal scope. I'd done this 100 times. Nothing ever happened. But that night, something was different. Around 2:37 a.m., the EVP recorder clicked. A burst of static, followed by a faint whisper. Why did you come back? My skin crawled. I rewound it. Again, the same voice. Female, barely audible. I scanned the room. Nothing but shadows. Then, from the hallway, a soft creaking. Footsteps. I froze. No animals. No people. Just me. And the echo of someone who wasn't there. I picked up the camera and turned toward the sound. The hallway stretched into blackness. Every light I'd set up flickered out one by one. A pulse of dread moved through me as I stepped forward. The temperature dropped instantly. My breath fogged. Then I saw it. A figure. Motionless. At the end of the hallway. She stood barefoot, her dress scorched and wet at the hem, hair hanging like drowned threads. Her head slowly turned toward me, and then she smiled. A slow, impossible, broken smile that reached too far across her face. I ran. I don't remember choosing to, just the primal need to flee. I stumbled into the dining room, knocking over my gear. While I looked back down the hallway, she was gone. But her voice whispered again, "Don't leave." Not yet. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the corner with my back pressed tight against the wall, flashlight clenched in my fist like a weapon. I kept watching the hallway, waiting for her to return. Every creak in the house made my heart race. I told myself I imagined her, that it was just exhaustion playing tricks on my mind. But no matter how many times I repeated that lie, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed me out of that hallway, and it was still watching. By morning, the house was quiet again, too quiet. The fog outside hadn't lifted. It pressed against the windows like a living thing, distorting the gray light, trying to filter in. I hadn't slept. I didn't even try. My only goal now was to get the rest of the footage and leave before nightfall. But the voice still echoed in my mind, "Don't leave." Not yet. That whisper felt less like a threat and more like a promise. I gathered my equipment with shaking hands. My breath still left visible puffs in the cold air, though the temperature on my thermal scope read a steady 19 degrees Celsius. I was too tired to question it. Every floorboard groaned beneath my steps like the house itself was protesting my presence. I moved to the second floor. The staircase was warped and crooked, each step moaning underfoot. At the top was a long hallway lined with closed doors, some half-rotted, others strangely intact. One stood out, the only door with a lock on the outside. Heavy, rusted, and bolted shut. It felt wrong. I aimed the camera at it. This is room 6. According to old records, this used to be Margaret Hallow's bedroom. Locals claim this is where the fire started, and where things were found afterward. My hand hesitated at the bolt. It hadn't been opened in years. But someone had tried. Deep scratch marks lined the wood, as if fingers had clawed to get out. I swallowed hard and pulled the bolt. The lock gave with a shriek. The door creaked open. The smell hit me first. Mildew, ash, and something sickly sweet like rotting perfume. The room beyond was untouched, preserved like a shrine. A burnt canopy bed sagged in the middle of the room. A child's rocking horse stood near the window, swaying gently though the glass was sealed. On the wall opposite, someone had scrawled in black soot, "I never left." I turned on the EVP recorder again. Static, then a laugh. A low, hollow chuckle that built into something more manic. My camera battery died instantly, fully charged only minutes before. I backed out of the room slowly. As soon as I stepped into the hallway, the door slammed shut behind me with a violent bang. I ran back down the stairs, nearly slipping. When I reached the ground floor, all the lights I'd set up were off. Not flickering dead. My phone was frozen. My watch had stopped at 3:03 a.m., the time I first heard the voice the night before. And the worst part? The front door was wide open. The fog had rolled in thicker now, curling into the living room like fingers. Outside was just a wall of white. I could barely see the porch. I stepped forward, unsure if I was walking into freedom or something worse. And then I saw her again, standing just beyond the porch, barefoot in the mud. Her head tilted slightly, her face pale and stretched too long. Her arms hung at unnatural angles, and her eyes, they weren't looking at me. They were looking through me. I stepped back inside and slammed the door shut. No signal, no power, no exit. I was trapped. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time stopped matching. At some point, I began to hear humming, a slow lullaby drifting down from upstairs. I recognized it from one of the old recordings in the town archive. A nursery rhyme once sung by Margaret Hallow to her child, who died in the fire with her. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know what was happening. I had to go back upstairs. I had to see the room again. That message, "I never left." Who wrote it? What did it mean? I reached the staircase, flashlight flickering, legs trembling. And as I stepped onto the first stair, I heard a voice behind me, clear and close. "She's not the only one still here." I turned sharply at the voice, but no one was there. Just the empty hallway and silence pressing in from all sides. The flashlight flickered again, sputtering into near darkness. I stood still, listening. The voice had been male, deep, rasping, calm. It wasn't Margaret's whisper. This was someone or something else. I backed away from the stairs. The house no longer felt abandoned. It felt aware. Then came a knock, not on a door or window. From inside the wall, 3 deliberate taps behind the peeling wallpaper. Another came from beneath the floorboards, then the ceiling above. All around me, I ran to the kitchen, searching for an exit. The cupboards were open, dishes shattered, and a single teacup sat centered on the table, filled with dark liquid. I tried the back door. Locked. I grabbed a chair and struck the glass. It cracked, but didn't break. It felt as though the house refused to let me go. Then, in the reflection, I saw him. A child, maybe 7, hollow-eyed, with charred fingertips. He stared at me. I spun around, nothing, but scrawled across the wall in curling soot. She lied. We all did. Panicking, I rushed into the pantry and shut the door. Darkness enclosed me. From somewhere in the house, a warped lullaby played. I pressed my hands over my ears. It didn't help. The sound was inside my skull. Then, a knock at the pantry door. Slow, gentle. Knock, knock, knock. A child's voice whispered beyond the thin door. "You opened her room. That means she's yours now." Silence. When I finally emerged, the house was quiet. All the doors stood open. The fog outside had lifted. I walked out into weak sunlight. My car was still there. I drove away without looking back. But last night, I heard the lullaby again. In my apartment. And this morning, muddy footprints trailed across my floor. Small ones. And on the mirror, in long, curling letters. Not done yet.